shocker of all shockers, Spider-Man is back in the MCU. Hey guys, it's Sean O'Connell, the managing director here at CinemaBlend, and naturally I'm coming on to record a video to react to the news that Sony and Marvel have figured out their Spider-Man differences and Tom Holland is going to stay in the MCU. Come on guys, like for real, like we knew this was going to happen, we just didn't know when it was going to happen. I think by my watch we were sweating this story for about 3 weeks. And I don't want to say that it's inevitable, but it was kind of inevitable. So why don't we discuss all of the details that got us to Tom Holland back in the MCU. Before we go down and break down all the details, I want you to go ahead and hit subscribe and turn on your notifications because we're always talking about things going on in the superhero world on CinemaBlend, and we want you guys to stay as up to date as possible. So a press release dropped on a Friday, totally unsuspecting, that Kevin Feige is going to be producing the third untitled Spider-Man film in the MCU, and they will be a share between Sony and Disney to use Spider-Man across multiple platforms. Let's get right to the heart of that news. It means that the story that was ended in Spider-Man Far From Home, where Spider-Man's identity was revealed to all by Mysterio, is going to be able to be continued in a third Spider-Man movie that absolutely will fall under the umbrella of the MCU. And Kevin Feige, as it turns out, is not too busy either working on a Star Wars film or shepherding the next phase of Marvel and Disney Plus shows. He will be a creative consultant on this third Spider-Man film. However, in addition, this is really worth noting, there's wording in the press release that says that through this agreement, Spider-Man will also be able to appear in an additional Marvel Studios film. It says also will appear, and that's really important because it means that we're going to see Spider-Man show up in something potentially like Black Panther 2, Doctor Strange 2, maybe Shang-Chi. A number of these titles that have been announced for Marvel's Phase 4 that we didn't expect to see Spider-Man in, but now he can be because they're figuring out a way to share. Additionally, I want to point out that in the quote that Kevin Feige gives us in the press release that was announced regarding this new partnership, he makes it very clear that Spider-Man has the ability to cross over through multiple film universes, and basically stated that this means Spider-Man, played by Tom Holland, could potentially start showing up in the Sony films that Sony is developing outside of the MCU. He does say, be prepared for some future surprises, which means that we might see Spider-Man show up. I don't know if he's going to be in Venom 2, which is going to be directed by Andy Serkis, but we have a Morbius film that's actually finished shooting, and announced plans for a Madam Web film, a Kraven the Hunter film, a Silver Sable film, a Black Cat film, and all of these movies, if they actually come to fruition, now potentially have the ability to have Tom Holland bring his Spider-Man over from Disney into Sony's universe. This is a groundbreaking development. And again, I basically kind of thought this was going to happen. I'm just surprised that it's happening as quickly as it is. There was too much money on the table between Disney and Sony for them not to figure out some way to continue sharing this character. When Sony tried to do Spider-Man on their own, they failed at it. I call a spade a spade. This is what happened. They struggled to get Andrew Garfield's franchise off the ground, and it only was when they started collaborating with Disney and Marvel and Kevin Feige specifically that they figured out how to get Spider-Man soaring to the heights that we expect him to be at in an on-screen adventure. We also knew that Marvel's big plans would involve Spider-Man, and I kind of thought that it would take a while until they got to maybe the end of Phase 4, Phase 5, where they had a Thanos-level threat that would need all of the characters to once again come together and fight, that Disney and Sony would then figure out a way to say, okay, look, I know that we've done a couple of Spider-Man movies on our own at Sony, but it's time to let Spider-Man go back to the MCU, team up with everybody, which by that point could potentially include characters like the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, and then you put together a new Avengers-style adventure, which right now is not on Marvel's slate. However, it's comforting to know that Disney and Sony came to this conclusion much sooner. One other thing to clarify is that with the announcement of the release date for this third Spider-Man movie in July of 2021, this means that Marvel Studios is going to have 4 official MCU movies in theaters in 2021. And while that might feel like they are biting off more than they can chew, they're actually going to cover a lot of different corners of the universe between Shang-Chi, the Doctor Strange sequel, this new Spider-Man film, and then of course Thor, Love, and Thunder. They can basically tell 4 different stories in 4 different realms of the MCU and still keep fans really intrigued about where the overall story is going to go. I think there's going to be a lot more coming from this development, so you're going to want to stay right here as we continue to track the progress of where Spider-Man is going, not only in the MCU, but also in the growing Sony Spider-Verse. To keep up with everything that we're learning about all of these stories, you're going to want to go down and hit subscribe, turn on your notifications, and keep it right here on CinemaBlend's YouTube page.